What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Wolfcryer here with a build guide for patch 2.6.6 season 18 in Diablo 3. Now, playing on the PTR, this was actually one of my favorite builds to mess around with, and this is a take on the old Raiment Generator build and utilizes the new Captain Crimson set bonus, which adds even more damage to this already pretty powerful build. Now, I don't expect this build to be able to dethrone the Legacy of Dreams Wave of Light build for the monk, but it is a very powerful build. I personally have done a GR 105 with this build with suboptimal gear and very few Caldicins, so it is entirely capable of pushing much higher. And I did this with the single generator version. And the duo gen, where you run 2 generators for this build, is a much more powerful version. So let's jump right into the gear, ladies and gentlemen. First up, we have the 6-piece set bonus for the Raiment of 1,000 Storm set. You are going to wear 5 pieces and you are going to cube the Ring of Royal Grandeur, which allows you to get the 6-piece set bonus by only wearing 5 pieces. And this set grants your spirit generators 25% increased attack speed and 400% increased damage. And for the 6-piece set bonus, your dashing strike increases the damage of your spirit generators by 6,000% for 6 seconds. And you are going to combine that with 2 pieces of your Captain Crimson's trimmings. These 2 pieces, along with that Ring of Royal Grandeur, are going to give you 6,000 life regen per second. It's going to reduce your cooldowns of all skills by 20% and reduce all resource costs by 20%. And the 3-piece set bonus, your damage is going to be increased by your percentage of your cooldown reduction, and your damage taken is reduced by your percentage of cost reduction. Now, running these 2 sets combined does mean that we lose the shoulder bonus, the mitigation that we got from the Lefebvre's shoulders, but this more than makes up for the mitigation and increases damage substantially. You're also going to be wearing Shenlong's Fist of Legend and Shenlong's Relentless Assault, which is going to increase the damage of your spirit generators by 2% for each point of spirit you have, and when you reach maximum spirit, all of your damage is increased by an additional 200%. But during this time, you no longer passively regenerate spirit, and 65 spirit is drained every second until you run out of spirit. But we can combat that by utilizing one of our skills, Breath of Heaven, infused with light. And because of the amount of cooldown that we are looking for with this build, that is going to be up quite regularly. The next piece of gear we're looking at is Spirit Guards. These are going to reduce your damage taken by up to 60% for 3 seconds. And you are looking for fire damage on this, 6% crit, dex, and vite, preferably with a secondary resistance. And then we are also going to be running with a Unity, which is going to cut our damage taken in half as long as we wear one and our follower wears one, and our follower has the relic that allows him not to die. And for the other ring and your amulet, you are going to run the Endless Walk set, the Compass Rose, and the Traveler's Pledge. And while you're moving, damage taken is reduced by up to 50%, and every time you stand still, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%. Now, unfortunately, with this build, because of the Ring of Royal Grandeur, the Compass Rose, and the Unity, we are not able to run with a Convention of Elements. But as long as your cooldown percentage is up there, I'd say over 65%, the Crimson set is going to more than make up for that damage loss from the COE. Now, in your gear, what I would do is socket all diamonds for the resistances on your chest and your pants, and throw a diamond into your helm for the cooldown reduction. Normally with this build, you would be running with the amethyst for more life, but because of the way this build runs, where cooldown reduction is very important to increasing your damage, I would run with a diamond in your helm. And then the cube, we are running Flying Dragon, which is going to give you a chance to double your attack speed when you're attacking. I have tested this with Echoing Fury, and it works pretty decent as long as there are several mobs in the area. If you get a solo Rift Guardian, you are going to miss Flying Dragon, so I would stick with Flying Dragon. If you're in a group setting, maybe switch off to Echoing Fury, but I think Flying Dragon is still the strongest cubed weapon for this build. Next up, we are running Depth Diggers, which is going to increase our generators by another 100% damage. So they are pretty necessary as well. And like we've already talked about, the Ring of Royal Grandeur. For your legendary gems, you are looking at Bane of the Stricken because this build utilizes a Stricken really well because each attack you make against an enemy increases the damage it takes from your attacks by a certain percentage. And this continues to stack and stack and stack. And Raiment Generator attacks really fast. Plus, once you get this gem to level 25, you gain 25% increased damage against bosses and Rift Guardians. For the next gem, you are using Simplicity Strength, which is going to increase the damage of your primary skills, and hits with your primary abilities also heal you for 4% of your maximum health. This is going to be a great way to stay alive during rifts, but I do suggest that one of your weapons also has life on hit, because this is going to help you keep your health up while you are in the middle of everything that's going on, because you are not a Wave of Light monk. You are not going to be casting from a distance. You are going to be up in the thick of battle, using your generators to deal all of your damage. So I would strongly suggest life on hit on one of your weapons. And your last gem that you're going to be using is Bane of the Trapped, which is a very useful gem for almost every single damage dealing build. And this gem increases the damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects. And at 25, you gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies, which is a control impairing effect. So these three gems combined are the only real options for this build. Now, as far as your skills go, you are going to be running with Crippling Wave Mangle. This is what's going to deal all of your damage, and every third hit also dazes enemies, which slows their movement speed and attack speed, helping you survive a little bit longer. Then we're going to be running Breath of Heaven infused with light. This is going to allow you to gain 14 additional spirit from spirit generating attacks for 5 seconds after using Breath of Heaven. And like I said, because of the amount of cooldown we're running with this build, this is going to be up quite a bit. So don't be afraid to use it. Usually you would hold off and use this when you're Flying Dragon procs, but you don't really have to worry about that as much because of the amount of cooldown that we have. You're going to be looking for 63 to 70% cooldown. In my opinion, you don't want to go much higher because then you start losing other stats that you're looking for. But Breath of Heaven is going to be up quite often. I really don't run into a problem where I need Breath of Heaven and it's not readily available. Next up, we're going to be using Epiphany Desert Shroud, and this is going to allow you to teleport to enemies. It's also going to increase your spirit regen, but this won't work so much once you trigger the passive on your Shenlongs. So you're going to have to rely on Crippling Wave and Breath of Heaven to generate that spirit for you, but it's also going to allow you to take 50% less damage. And Epiphany is up quite often as well, thanks to all the cooldown that we're running. However, if you want to use the duo generator version of this build, which is slightly more powerful, although, like I said, I do think that the normal version is capable of doing a GR 110, but I think that the duo gen version could probably push this to maybe 112 to 115, somewhere in that area, because it is a pretty decent damage bonus. And if that's the case and you want to try it with that, instead of running Epiphany, you're going to want to run Assimilation. And Assimilation is going to give you a damage stack based on the amount of enemies that you hit, and this is going to give you 5% increased damage for each enemy hit by one single burst of that third part of the attack. Now, if you are running Assimilation, you're going to want to watch out for resetting it after you get a decent stack. You don't want to instantly reset it to a much smaller damage bonus, so you're going to have to fool around and try to get used to creating that buff for yourself and then switching back over to Mangle and dealing the bulk of your damage. Then we're looking at Dashing Strike Blinding Speed, which is going to give you 40% increased chance to dodge for 4 seconds after using Dashing Strike, and this is what's going to trigger your Raiment set and give you that 6,000% damage increase for your Crippling Wave. So you are going to want to make sure that you are using Dashing Strike quite often. You don't want to overuse it and mitigate your own damage, but you want to make sure that the buff is active at all times. Then we've got Cyclone Strike Implosion, which is going to pull in enemies up to 34 yards away from you, and you're going to want to be doing this not for the damage mitigation that we used to get from the Lefebvres, but more to gather everything into a big ball and be able to hit with our generators. Very useful for progressing through the rift. And last, we're looking at Mantra of Salvation Agility. This is going to increase your resistances and give you 35% increased dodge chance. And the active is also going to give you another 20% increased resistances to all elements. So tap this if you start to run into trouble. But overall, it's a pretty decent mantra to have while you're pushing greater rifts. Now for the passive skills, we're looking at Harmony. 40% of your single elemental resistances from items instead increases your resistance to all elements. And then we're going to use Seize the Initiative, which is going to give us a 30% increased attack speed for 4 seconds every time we deal damage to enemies above 75% life. And then we run Alacrity, which is also going to increase the attack speed of your spirit generators by 15%. And last but not least, we are running Beacon of Ytar, which is going to reduce all cooldowns by 20%. Running Beacon of Ytar and your Crimson set is going to give you a great big boost to your cooldown reduction, so you're not going to have to focus extremely on your gear, but you are going to look for cooldown on your shoulders, possibly on your gloves, maybe one of your rings, and preferably on both weapons. But you're going to want to also combine this with at least 100% overall area damage, as well as crit chance. You want to be above 50%, as well as crit multiplier and some attack speed if you can fit it. But I would shoot for about 63 to 70% cooldown reduction, about 100% area damage. If you can get a little bit higher, that's always going to be beneficial for clearing the trash mobs in the rift. But I personally wouldn't sacrifice cooldown in order to reach much higher than 100% area damage, because the Captain's Crimson set is going to really buff up this build. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the all-new Raiment Generator build, utilizing the Captain Crimson's set bonuses that are being introduced in patch 2.6.6 for Season 18 in Diablo 3. I want to say thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I always greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for more Season 18 Diablo 3 build guides, which are going to be coming quite a bit. And once again, thank you so very much, and you all have a fantastic day. Peace.